I'm ambivalent about Hanukkah, and I have to admit it. And let me explain. The music is fantastic. The latkes are great, if you know how to make them. Who doesn't like jelly donuts? Chocolate Hanukkah Geld is one of Judaism's great contribution to the world. And what's interesting is kids think that Geld is chocolate. It's supposed to be coins. It's so interesting. Yeah, where's the Geld? Oh, it's chocolate. No, it isn't. But we're not going to tell the kids that. But Hanukkah Geld is great. Hanukkah presents here and there are very nice. Who doesn't want them? The Hanukkah lights are beautiful. Light shining into our homes bring wonderful feeling of hope and peace. And you turn off the lights, and what you're supposed to do in the dark is just watch the candles in the dark. With that, nothing else. We have a wonderful Chanukiah that was put up this week, and we'll be lighting it at 6 o'clock, starting the first night of Hanukkah, continuing. So Sunday night we start. So who doesn't like all these things? I like all those things. Here's what I'm ambivalent about. I don't like miracle stories. I don't like miracle stories. Miracle stories, as I understand them, mean the suspension of law, natural laws. In my opinion, Judaism is a rational faith. Our God created a world with established laws. And those laws of physics, mathematics, biology, chemistry make the world predictable. They make scientific advancement possible. I never want them suspended, even for a Hanukkah miracle. I'll just give you a real example. How many people would want the laws of what's the laws that keep planes up? Huh? Aerodynamics. I don't want the laws of aerodynamics to just disappear when I'm at 30,000 feet. I got that off my chest. So we tell this miracle story every year, and it's cute. Okay, the Maccabees rededicated the temple that had been desecrated, and they purified the altar where the sacrifices were brought, and they restarted the eternal light, and according to in the menorah that was in the temple, and we know the miracle. There was oil for one night, and it lasted 8 nights. And we tell it to our children every year. It's in our prayer book. But at some point, children will ask, does this make any sense? And my fear is that they will think that Judaism is a bunch of miracle stories. And this prevents them and from us from a deeper understanding of all the things that Judaism wants to teach this world. Literally, I cringe time and time again as I hear the miracle story. Oh, and I'll give you an example. Parents, and they're lovely. They want to volunteer to go into their kids' classrooms, and if they're in secular school, and to teach the Hanukkah story. So what do? They take in the candles and they say, Rabbi, what's the Hanukkah story? And what do? I give them a story. If that's why we observe Hanukkah, it's because of a miracle story, it seems silly to me. Now, I'm not on a campaign against the miracle story, and I don't forbid the miracle story from being taught, and it would be misunderstood if I took that position. And as long as we say that it's a legend, my blood pressure will remain stable. But what then is the Hanukkah story? It's such a good story. It's such a profound story for adult Jews. So here it is, and I'm making it is simple but as correct as I possibly can make it. We read that the Greek-Syrian king Antiochus IV of Epiphanes publicly forced Jews to violate Jewish law in 168 BCE. And the Jews revolted, led by Mattathias, an elder in the Hasmonean family of priests, and his son, the eldest of whom was Judah the Maccabee. They succeeded in capturing the defiled temple and rededicating it 4 years later, ending with the story of the eight-night miracle. But this is not the full story. Hanukkah's story is really about, I want people to hear this, is really about a revolt against the Hellenized Jews who had become intoxicated with this incredible, attractive superculture of the Greeks. The book of Maccabees is not part of the Hebrew Bible, makes it clear that the battle against Hellenization was in fact a culture struggle among the Jews themselves. Some Jews wanted a very traditional Judaism that wasn't tainted by the Greek culture, and some wanted an extreme assimilation to Greek culture, and some wanted like a little bit of Judaism, a little bit of Greek culture. So here is how the first book of Maccabees describes Jerusalem on the eve of civil war and revolt in the time of Antiochus. The book of Maccabees, the two books of Maccabees are certainly worth studying. They're not easy, but they're worth studying. It says, at this time, there were evildoers in Israel who tried to win popularity by a policy of integration with the surrounding nations. You had, according to the tradition, according to Maccabees, the Jews wanted to be like the Greeks because that's who surrounded them. And it was because, and I'm going to continue, it was because the Jews had kept themselves aloof so long, they claimed, that so many hardships had befallen them. In other words, the problem with the Jews is we're separatist. They acquired a following and applied to Antiochus, who authorized them to introduce the Greek way of life. They built a Greek gymnasium in Jerusalem and even had them uncircumcised. We'll get to that in a moment. So, according to this, it was the Greeks, the Hellenized Greeks, who went to Antiochus and said, you forbid the practice of Judaism. He was doing what the Hellenized Jews wanted. Jews subverted Judaism. And then it gets, this is really interesting. It says, uncircumcision as the price of admission to the Jerusalem gym. In other words, in Greek culture, there was a gymnasium where people in a nude did athletics. And so what the Hellenized Jews did, and I don't want to get into gory details, they had a procedure where they tried to make their penis look uncircumcised. Just think about this. And when they were 8 days old, the sign of the covenant had been carved in their flesh. Now, as young men, these Jews risked health and sacrifice to become one flesh with the regnant beauty culture. In other words, they had to look like the Greeks. In Judea, then, there were Jews choosing to die rather than publicly profane Jewish law, and there were Jews risking death to free themselves from the parochial constraints of that law. I mean, this is a good book. I mean, why doesn't anyone read this book and teach anyone something? The historical passion to merge and disappear confronted the attested Jewish will to stand apart and persist. That's the clash of Hanukkah. Armed Hasmonean priests and their comrades from the rural town of Modi'in attacking urban Jews, priests, and laity who supported the Greek culture, like the gymnasium and other parts of Greek civilization. The Hasmoneans, the Maccabees, imposed at sword's edge traditional observance. They rejected a Judaism tainted by the Greek culture, and after years of warfare, the priests established this Hasmonean state that never ceased fighting Jews who disagreed with its rule. So these Maccabees weren't so wonderful. They wanted to impose their view of Judaism on everyone else. Welcome to our world. Civil war is catastrophic. The Jews have known it too much. Let me share with you a few of the crazy civil wars that Jews have fought that are very similar to what the story of the Maccabees is about. For years, Afghanistan's last two Jews carried on a bitter feud. From the Taliban tyranny to the American occupation, Itzik Levin and Zablon Simantov squabbled and plotted against one another in Kabul's Flower Street synagogue. There were only two Jews left in Afghanistan. And what did they do? They fought with each other. The only thing they could agree with was on their mutual loathing. They lived at the opposite ends of the synagogue, refusing to speak except to exchange curses. Both were jailed and tortured by the Taliban. Each accused the other of betrayal. That's called a civil war. Let me give you another example. It's a terrible moment in Israel, in Zionist history. During Israel's struggle for independence, David Ben-Gurion and Menachem Begin fought over arms and ammunition smuggled into Israel by the Irgun aboard the Atalena. The Irgun was the group led by Menachem Begin, who were much more extreme and terrorist-oriented than the more moderate Ben-Gurion's group. They were the group that blew up the King David Hotel. I mean, Ben-Gurion feared the creation of a fifth column within the IDF, within the Israel Defense Force, loyal to Begin rather than the chain of command. So refusing to acquiesce to Ben-Gurion's ultimatum resulted in an armed conflict between these two groups. They're all fighting for the independence of Israel, and they're fighting each other. And then most of us know what happened. Ben-Gurion ordered the sinking of the Atlena, Menachem Begin's ship, and led to the death of 16 Irgun fighters and 3 IDF soldiers. Jews killing Jews. I have some other examples, but you get the message. There are moments in Jewish life, just like the story of the Maccabees, when it's not our external enemies, but when we're enemies of each other. Thus, for me, Hanukkah is a profound modern tale, a warning. It's not about miracles. It's about Jewish disunity and Jewish intolerance, our inability to find common ground. Neither the Maccabees or the Hellenizing Jews were all bad or all good. We Jews often don't get along, and we see this in Israel today. There are Jews who want to withdraw from the West Bank, and there are Jews who want to annex it. There are theocratic government. There's a new theocratic government. Let's call it what it is, and they want to limit the rights of Reform and conservative Jews in practically everything. And with the Orthodox Jewish community, there's a debate between those who want to fight for the security of Israel and the ultra-Orthodox who don't even want to accept the existence of Israel. There's a debate about who has a right to decide what's kosher and what isn't. People can't agree upon the authority of who is allowed to convert Jews and who can't. And the Knesset sometimes feels like a professional wrestling match. And if you want to add it up, this civil war could possibly destroy the state of Israel. And we in America are equally divided. Reform Jews have little relationship with their Orthodox brethren, and American Jews are divided about Israel. This is something that is very important for our congregation. For some, if I convert someone to Judaism, no Orthodox Jewish authority will accept it. That's very dangerous. Hasidic communities are deeply divided, mostly about power, money, and turf. Many secular Jews are offended by orthodoxy, and Orthodox Jews feel disdain for liberal Jews. I don't want to depress us, but I just want to tell the truth about what this story is about and how powerfully important it is. It's not about oil. Although, don't say I'm against olive oil. I like olive oil. What is the serious adult message of Hanukkah? We are fragile people. We need to be less certain of our own positions. We need to find passive commonality. We need to find projects that unite us. And if we're not an Am Echad, one people, all is doomed. Hanukkah reminds us that we need to get our acts together. because our own self-righteousness and intolerance is as dangerous as any threat coming from outside our community. Hanukkah means rededication. Originally, it was about the rededication of the temple. For me, it's a rededication to the oneness of the Jews. We need a lot of glue to put us together. Let us all light our Hanukkah lights. They're beautiful and wonderful. And you can tell the oil story if it makes you happy. But let us act, sharing together that all kinds of Jews are one. And let us remind ourselves that we are nothing without each other. Shabbat Shalom.